Saturday morning. Welcome into Weekend Recharge. I'm LaRosa.
And I'm Julie Martin. You know, Paul Goodlow has the weekend off. Hard to believe it's the last weekend before Christmas Eve.
And those of you who are wading into the fray will be fighting lots of crowds, traffic, and in some cases, Mother Nature.
It's some crazy stuff out there. And you know, we're taking a look at the big picture for your Saturday snapshot. We do have a little bit of snow still falling in places like upstate New York, but the big snow event really yesterday for the bigger cities there. So relatively quiet weather conditions for your day today. Some rain, though, moving in through places like Texas, the Gulf Coast. Plenty of sunshine here in the southeast. And we have actually a big pattern shift. So actually this is going to create some more snow here in places like the northern Rockies. Well above average temperatures for many of you. So enjoy it if you're out there today trying to get those last minute gifts. 10 to 20 degrees above average throughout much of the south and portions of the plains. Over to Maria. To deal with this time of year, the wet weather, it's certainly welcome in these parts. Dallas for today, not too bad. And then as we get into next week, we will see on Monday some pretty good conditions, and then the rain returning. This is kind of like round two as we get into the first part of the week. So taking a look here at the big picture today, we certainly have plenty of Gulf moisture streaming in here from the south. Again, our pattern change, this big dip in the jet stream, this trough as we call it here in the west, well, that's going to usher in a lot of that milder air, but also some of that moisture and trigger perhaps even some storms in places like Texas and the Gulf Coast. So we're going to see that this weekend, that moisture being pulled up here to the north, and really just some scattered showers coming in as we speak. So we've got a couple of low pressures as well. So as we go throughout the day today, look for some of that rain from San Antonio to Houston, Corpus Christi up into Houston. Now tomorrow that shifts a little bit, and we're going to be looking at places like New Orleans, perhaps even Atlanta, back up into the Midwest as well. And then more Gulf Coast moisture kind of lingering as we get into Monday into Tuesday. So we've got a few of these impulses that are going to be coming through here in these parts, just keeping things a little bit unsettled as we get into the first part of next week. So this is Tuesday, scattered storms from Dallas and Houston into Jackson, Mississippi, Atlanta, Georgia. How much rain are we talking about? Well, as I mentioned, maybe 1 inch to 2 inches at the most. Some pockets of Texas, though, maybe 3 to 5 inches for you. So again, welcome rain, but maybe not the most welcome timing as lots of people are out on the roads and trying to get stuff done.
But I think it's a welcome warm-up, too, because it's rain and not snow. You know, this time last weekend was a whole different story, right? But we're actually talking about that break from the cold now in the northeast, in the southeast, which, again, is a big change up from last weekend. We're at 62 in Tampa, 68 in Miami. We're still feeling the chill north of there, though, so below freezing in Little Rock, Nashville at 33, Atlanta at 32 after dipping down into the 20s. So still chilly. Another little refreshing batch of cold air here. It's 5 degrees colder than it was this time yesterday, and for much of that southern tier, the Gulf Coast, a little bit colder than it was this time yesterday. But by this time tomorrow, a little bit warmer. So we're on the uptick. So today the pattern is, of course, keeping the cold air of the northern tier. You have that dip across the west. That's going to allow a little bit of a surge, a little bit of a bump here, especially across the south, I think is where we'll sort of appreciate the change, because you go from below freezing to maybe lows in the 40s. You'll notice that. And as we get into next week, that's where we sort of hang out. Not quite as cold, that coldest air hanging to the north. So what does that mean for today? We're back up into the 50s for Atlanta. By tomorrow, pushing 60. We're there in Montgomery, 64. Back into the 70s, Orlando. If you're doing the extended holiday break there, that's going to be more like it. 83 for you on Monday. But notice everyone back up into the 60s here, Monday into Tuesday. We'll even get mid and upper 70s from Tallahassee into New Orleans. 70 degrees in Jackson, and you can see the trend. Yes, it's warmer in Atlanta, but as Julie, you were talking about, the rain as well. And look at that and talk to Lauren in just a little bit. But of course, another question a lot of people are asking, what about a white Christmas? It has a lot to do with how pretty it's going to look outside, but of course your travel as well.
Yeah, and the snow's okay. We just don't want all the ice, right?
Oh boy, yeah.
Okay, so we've got a couple of scenarios, correct?
Yes.
All right, this is one.
So we know it's colder. It's going to be colder for a lot of places, and for many cities, that means you're going to be entrenched in the cold. I mean, Kansas City is a great example where, you know, you're fairly mild above average, and then once that cold settles in next week, oh, you are in it.
Those are high temperatures,
yes,
right? Okay. And then Chicago's another place. It's feeling pretty good this week, and then we start to get into next weekend, and we're down in the 20s for highs.
Right.
So yes, feeling like Christmas for sure.
All right, so we have cold air in place. The next question is, where's the moisture? Where's the storminess? So we have a couple scenarios. One, the first one, is that we got this upper low that's cutting off, that sort of keeps it hanging out there, and the colder air in place where it is. That means some snow, less chance of snow and ice off to the south.
Number 2 is probably no one's favorite because it does involve a lot of ice. So if that low holds back a little bit to the west here, it looks like we could see an icy wintry mix maybe all the way from Texas up into the northeast. So hopefully that won't be the case.
Right, and if you think about this as almost like a train track, it could be, you know, days maybe of some of that, and that's really a terrible scenario. And then we have this one where it's faster storm with some snow, some ice, I guess a little bit of a mix with that upper low getting a little bit of a kick out, a little bit more progressive, so perhaps a less prolonged situation. But you still see the general trend where a lot of those areas are going to stay cold.
Yeah, and we'll fine tune this as we get closer, of course. Here's a look at next Saturday. It is looking like we could see a wintry mix here in pink and purple. So again, below that, looks like it'll be too warm, so maybe some rain coming into the south.
Yeah, so you do paint that picture too, where it's not cold, it's going to stay mild and really a rain situation. Dallas? Snow? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, low temperatures down below freezing, that'll be something to watch for sure. And Nashville too, on the line.
Maybe snow at least in the sky, you know, or on the grassy surfaces. So that's pretty at least.
So as they say in TV, stay tuned. And by the way, are you wishing for winter weather? Our expert Tom Nizzle is going to break down the odds that your city, as do we, but we are keeping an eye on it. We're ticking down now. It's 7, 8, 9 days until Christmas or so, I think. This is the forecast, so where we're likely to see a white Christmas, whether it's snow on the ground, snow falling, how you define it. What we're looking at here, very likely, especially the northern tier. A couple reasons. You have the snow already on the ground in a lot of these places, and that's where the cold is going to stick around. So at least what is falling and what is yet to come will likely stick around a little bit longer, and that's the case too in those higher elevations. Where we're kind of pretty much out of it is across the south. You know, I still have a few snow patches in my Atlanta area house here from last week's snow. That is not going to happen. We've got rain and temperatures in the 60s coming, but again, that's not really necessarily disappointment because that's how it is.
We got enough snow last week here in Atlanta, right? To last all year. All right, Maria, thanks. What about Christmas week, though? Just, you know, a lot of you still going to be traveling out here. So let's take a look at the forecast. This is Saturday, a week from now, and we do see a lot of rain here across the south. Maybe a bit of a wintry mix as we get into places like the Tennessee Valley as well. Quiet conditions back here in the west, so that's looking good for your travel. Places like LA around 70 degrees and still staying very warm in Florida as well. Miami at 82. Pretty seasonable here in New York City, 42 with some cloudy skies for Saturday. As we get into Sunday, Christmas Eve, again, could be a little bit messy here as we get into parts of the south and even into the mid-Atlantic, showing some pink and blue on the map here, and that could mean a wintry mix coming your way. So something to kind of be aware of, heads up for you, but we're going to, again, fine-tune that forecast as we get closer to Christmas Day here, Monday, December 25th. Overall, looking relatively quiet here across much of the country. Could see a little snow here in Montana, but looking at this wintry mix, this is what we're going to be focusing on, Maria, as we get into the mid-Atlantic and portions of the south, and hopefully that won't be
fire and the ice on the map this weekend and this week as well. A lot to get to. Half past the hours, weekend recharge rolls on. I'm Maria LaRosa alongside Julie Martin.
Yep, and the hustle and the bustle to get our homes and families ready for Christmas now reaching a fever pitch.
Absolutely. Christmas Eve, a week from tomorrow. If that's a shock to you, I know. But in California, you know, thousands of people remain out of their homes as wildfires continue to rage. And
yeah, California really not getting any help from Mother Nature. Very quiet weather conditions. This is a look at the past 6 hours here. Not much happening there in Southern California. Did see some lake effect snow coming across the Great Lakes, and also some snow, by the way, last night in the northeast. All of that's out of there for today. Relatively quiet weather pattern setting up here in the south. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures are going to be above average. Some rain, though, coming into places like Texas, perhaps Louisiana, and some snow finally working its way into the higher elevations in the Rockies. So a big pattern change, and that's going to keep things exceptionally warm for much of this week. We're going to be 10 to 20 degrees above average all the way from places like Oklahoma City back into Atlanta, Georgia, as we get into the first part, at least, of next week. So here's a look at today. This is our current radar. We do have some moisture working its way now into Texas, eventually coming through San Antonio, Houston later on today as well. Maria mentioned that change in the pattern. So here's that big dip here, our trough in the west, the milder air here in the east and in the south. So that is a big change, and that is going to help with some of that moisture working its way in. All of that moisture being pulled north over the weekend and into the first part of next week. So the Gulf Coast states all going to be getting a chance at least for some showers, maybe even some storms, some scattered storms coming in. Let's take a look at our future radar. We'll put this into motion throughout the day today. As I mentioned, that moisture working its way up through Texas, Houston later on this afternoon, likely getting some rain, as well as Dallas, and then Shreveport getting it later on this evening, probably right before midnight or so. And some of these pockets of rain here, according to our models at least, could be heavy at times. So that's actually some welcome news here, particularly in the Lone Star State. As far as any severe storms, not looking so favorable at all. We take a look at many factors, one of them being CAPE, as we call it, and that's basically the convective energy in the atmosphere, whether or not the storms could fire up as a result of that, and it's pretty low at this point. And Maria, really looking at maybe 1 inch to 2 inches in general. Again, some pockets, though, particularly in Texas, could get 3 or 4 inches, and that's really welcome news.
It's amazing how that's changed back to drought concerns in eastern Texas.
I know, right? After so much rain.
Absolutely. Well, along with the return of the moisture and the rain, it's a return to warmth in so many places. You know, remind me if you've heard this before, because I know you have. Well above average today across much of the central U.S., all the way up into Canada as well. The departure from average, that doesn't stop in through the central. It spreads next week into much of the country. While we're still talking about cold air up to the north, relatively speaking, it is actually above average. So that's one of those little quirks when you're talking about averages. With that said, can you pick out where it's going to be mild? Yeah, the central part of the country, 10 to 15 degrees above average come Monday. And you do the math here, that's about 40 degrees for you in in Minneapolis, Kansas City. 10 to 15 degrees above average gets you into the mid-50s. And it's not just one and done. You'll have a couple of days of this, because even as we get in through tomorrow, it's a similar situation from the Gulf Coast to the Canadian border, well above average. And even into today as well. You get to Oklahoma City, your average high this time of year, 50 degrees. I have to look and see when the last time we got really below that, because even with your dip on Sunday, tomorrow, 52, you're still above average, but you're right back up into the low 60s. And notice too, lack of any wet weather. You actually get to see some of that sunshine, similar to Kansas City with the rain and the cooler weather on Sunday. Julie, you're back. All right, I know everybody who has seen the snow and the salt and the dirt now from recent shots of snow. You're ready to get that car washed, ready for that long line, you know, at those car washes. So let's give you the forecast to see if it's worth your time. We've got Detroit, where I say maybe hold up, because you still have more snow in the forecast. You're just going to get dirty again. Temperatures into the 30s, that chance of snow, 50%. So there you go. And you've got the game, the Detroit Lions home today. Stay home, watch the game, have some fun. Also in Buffalo, with more snow on the way here too. You may want to hold off on that car wash just a little bit longer. Let this batch roll on through. 27 degrees, 40% chance of those snow showers. So a good chance that you're just going to get all messy again. So yeah, red light all the way, Julie.
Nation of the day right there, right? You don't want to waste your time washing your car. It's going to get all salty again. All right, let's talk about winter weather and where we're going to see some of it. You'll notice the green here on our water vapor imagery. That's all the moisture that's finally coming in here to portions of the Gulf Coast and the South. So a lot of places that have been very dry will be getting some rain. But what about the snow? Well, we have a change here in the west. So that's finally going to lend itself to some snow in the higher elevations. Places like Salt Lake City, you just haven't seen very much at all this year. You're well below where you should be for your snowfall totals. Right now, 32 degrees. We're right at freezing. It's cloudy, so no snow coming in, although we're showing some here in Park City, showing up on the radar, and certainly to your north if you're heading up I-15. So looking at Salt Lake City, the 1.9 inches of snow since October 1st is pretty paltry, right? Your average 15.1 inches. So you're tied now for the 12th least snowiest start to the season on record. So we are looking at some snow showers coming in today, then turning mostly cloudy as we get into tonight. Nonetheless, we could see it maybe a couple of inches on the ground here in Salt Lake City. As we get up into Montana, looking at maybe 3 to 5 inches for you. Our sweet spot, maybe 5 to 8 inches as we get into portions of Wyoming. Denver, not looking as great for you, maybe less than an inch of snow falling. So if you're a ski lover, I know that you're challenged right about now, but it does look like our pattern switch is going to help things out. All right, what about Christmas week, right? Everyone wanting to know, will I have a white Christmas? We have a couple of scenarios we want to show you. This is Christmas week. So our first scenario here, looks like this low here gets cut off. And that's going to amount to less snow, less ice, some snow here where you might expect it in the upper Midwest and in the Northeast. Now, our second scenario is a very messy one. If this low hangs back a little bit here in the west. We're looking at perhaps snow and ice in purple stretching all the way from Texas up into the northeast. Not what we want to see. And our third scenario real quick looks like a faster version of that one.